Hello, welcome to Unacademy IAS. Welcome to another session of Hindu News Analysis. This is Shyam Kaggod here taking up the discussion for today's session. Am I audible and visible to all of you? Please do let me know. Please give the confirmation so that I can start the discussion. Am I audible and visible for all of you? Yes. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Let's start. So welcome to the session dated 7th September 2025. In today's session, I've taken a total of 11 articles. All of them are from the daily edition of Hindu newspaper. Right, so the discussion will be comprehensive to take care of your requirements to answer the questions, not only for the preliminary examination as well as mains examination. If you're liking this initiative, do hit the like button. If you're yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly join right now. Now, before I start the discussion, the first very important announcement. If you are somebody who is aiming to clear the civil services 2026 and 2027, please ensure that you have a comprehensive coverage of the static portion. You'll have the right coverage of the current affairs as well. For example, those who enroll into our courses, we have a program by the name of Unacademy's Current Affairs Navigator, wherein every month, without fail, we are covering 30 hours specifically dedicated for current affairs. So every month, 30 hours for 12 months, you will have a current affairs coverage of 400 hours. So you will have to ensure current affairs coverage is appropriate, correct reading material. You will have to appear for prelims as well as a mains test series. Once you enroll into our courses, all of this is available. The price of the course right now, the lowest 17,999, and if you use the code IAS English, you will also get an extension of up to 12 months free of cost. Those who are interested, do check out the details by clicking on the link provided in the description below. Now, second important announcement, right, where most of you are more interested. Whatever PPT I'm using in the Hindu news analysis, as well as the economy this week, etc., these particular PPTs you can download. There is a link provided in the description. I repeat, there is a link provided in the description. The name of the link, essentially, I will highlight it. Indian Economy for Exams, a repository link. Click on this particular link and basically this particular page will pop up. Now in this page, there is a tab prelims, mains as well as a newspaper. Go to the newspaper PPT. You will get a link. Click on the link. You will be taken to a drive. You all have the access to that particular drive. Download the PPT. But more importantly, please use the PPT for revision purposes. Now, let's go forward now. Everybody is okay? Let's start with the discussion. The first article I'll be discussing is a flashpoint in the Park Strait. Now, before I go forward, I'm pretty sure all of you have seen the newspaper today. There is one very big article on GST. I'm not touching this for a simple reason. Yesterday, we had a discussion on GST reform. Day before yesterday, we have had a GST reform discussion on that particular reform. So those who are interested in reading or you have not read that particular concept so far, please refer to these two videos. Second article, which is very big article, is again on the diplomacy. What happened in the recent SCO summit, how India's foreign relations are changing, how the diplomatic approach is being changed by the government, etc. Again, I'm saying this for the last 2 to 3 days, we have had a detailed discussion on all of this. Example, yesterday only we have had a detailed discussion. That's a reason, no point in revising the same thing again and again. I'm skipping those two. Let me start with this article, a flashpoint in the Park Strait. What is the discussion all about? In the state of Tamil Nadu, next year, the elections are scheduled. That is for the state legislative assembly election. Now, whenever there are elections at the state level like this, generally one or the other talking point which is of a regional interest will become of primary importance. For example, in the context of Tamil Nadu, please listen to me carefully now. There are millions of fishers. According to the latest data point, there are around 1.2 million fishers who are residing in the state of Tamil Nadu. And this is common along these particular coastal states. For example, the state of Karnataka, the state of Tamil Nadu, state of, let's say Kerala. there is a huge chunk of population which is involved in the fishing activity. But why this particular fishing community or the fishing households come into prominence during this particular period of time? And this happened last year as well when the Lok Sabha elections were conducted. That is, there is one particular point of contention, that is the point of, right, let's say this island, Katchatheevu Island. There is an island in this particular region that is between India as well as Sri Lanka, that is a Katchatheevu. What is the importance of this particular point, or what is the contention associated with the island? Listen to me carefully. Historically, there have been certain points of friction between India as well as Sri Lanka regarding who should get the ownership or the rights over this particular island. Not new in India, not new in discussion. In the last couple of years, this has been one of the point of contention. But historically, what are the important points? Before independence, either be it in Sri Lanka or be it in India, this was one of the point of contention. At certain points of time in history, the ruling or the control over this particular island was with Ceylon. I'm using the term Ceylon because please understand, earlier Sri Lanka was referred to as Ceylon. Right, so at one point of time, the rule right over this particular island was with Ceylon, and later it was transferred to Madras Presidency. And during the British time period, essentially what happened was there was a survey conducted. British had rule over India as well as the Ceylon back then. So there was a survey conducted. According to the survey back in 1921, essentially the claim over this Katchatheevu island was laid by the Ceylon, that is Sri Lanka. And this was not acceptable to the British government in India. And that is the precise reason there was a dispute. Even before independence, there was a dispute. And as a result of this, this particular island was not covered either in the Indian territory or was it covered under the Sri Lankan territory. But later after independence, this became one of the point of, right, let's say friction or the flashpoint between India as well as Sri Lanka. This was discussed when Mr. Nehru was the prime minister, and was also discussed when Indira Gandhi was the prime minister. And that is the precise reason in 1974 and 1976 there was an agreement that was signed between India and Sri Lanka. There was an agreement, basically the maritime agreement that was signed between India and Sri Lanka. And in that particular agreement, what was the territorial jurisdiction? That is, what was the jurisdiction till where Indian rule was applicable, and after which Sri Lankan government rule would become applicable. This was mentioned in the form of longitude and latitude. Is everybody okay with the story so far? Please do let me know in the chat section. Is everybody okay with the story so far? So there was an agreement which was signed. According to the agreement, what was the, right, let's say coverage, territorial water for India as well as for Sri Lanka, that was agreed to by simply mentioning the longitude as well as the latitudes. And once this particular agreement was signed, later it was realized that Katchatheevu essentially went into the control of Sri Lanka. Very simple. When we divided the waters based on the latitude and longitude, we realized that Katchatheevu Island went into control of Sri Lanka, since then has been under the control of Sri Lanka. And by the way, please understand this. This concept of territorial division of borders or territorial, right, rights over these waters or the borders or the regions, etc., it is a very common thing. India shares borders with multiple countries. A lot of them we share land border. A lot of them we share, right, let's say the maritime borders like this. So these kind of disputes arising or the issues arising for border sharing is a very common thing. For example, India-Bangladesh border dispute was settled in the last decade. When Mr. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, right, in the last decade, there was an agreement that was signed between India and Bangladesh where there was an exchange of enclaves and exclaves that led to settlement of land border. Again, there is always a criticism how much land we gave away, how much land we got, etc. But what is the important outcome of this? Important outcome of this is this doesn't remain a sticking point between or a flashpoint between the two countries. And since then, I hope you understand this. Since then, the control over Katchatheevu is with Sri Lanka, and moreover, this is a very small island, very small island. In terms of length, it is less than 3 kilometers. In terms of width, it is less than a kilometer. So it is a very small piece of island. But now, why it has come into prominence? Why suddenly now there is a discussion around this island of Katchatheevu? Like I said, in the state of Tamil Nadu, next year, the legislative assembly, state legislative assemblies, elections are going to be held. And whenever these elections are supposed to be held, one area of concern will be the welfare of the farmers. I'm sorry, welfare of the fishers. Farmers, anyways, always it is a point of concern. In the state of Tamil Nadu, fishers is also a very important vote block. Like I said earlier, more than, right, let's say 12 lakh of fishers are present in the state of Tamil Nadu. And now a political party, leader of a new political party in Tamil Nadu, very famous by the way, actor Vijay. I'm pretty sure some of you have heard of him, and a lot of you have not heard. Doesn't matter for UPSC, not important, don't worry. Actor Vijay has raked up this particular issue, has stated that the government of India should take away, should bring back the ownership or the control over the Katchatheevu island. And as a response to that, which basically echoed, and I think it was heard by even Sri Lankan government, and that is a precise reason, the head of the Sri Lankan government, now Disanaike, Mr. Disanaike, has made a visit to the Katchatheevu island. He made a visit to Katchatheevu island. Right, so I hope you understand this is there in the discussion. But for you, apart from this, one is the aspect of territorial integrity. Apart from this, why this particular issue is raised every often? Why this particular issue is raised very often? Because of the fishers' welfare, fishers' revenue. Listen to me very carefully. Back in the year 2016, there was an agreement which was signed between Government of India and Government of Sri Lanka. According to that particular agreement, it was focused on one important area, that is the fishing activity in these waters. And in these particular agreements, there was one provision which stated that the governments should, over a period of time, do away with bottom trawling. All of you heard of this? Please do let me know in the chat section. The governments over a period of time should implement reforms to do away with bottom trawling fishing. Now, what is this activity which is referred to as a bottom trawling fishing? The nets will be added with the weights so that the net will sink, will go to the bottom part of the sea, that is settle on the seabed, and we will conduct the fishing activity. This is called as a bottom trawling fishing. According to this agreement, the governments were supposed to implement reforms to basically declare this, move away from the concept of a bottom trawling fishing. Sri Lanka has declared bottom trawling fishing as illegal. Indian government is yet to do. And as a result of the practice of bottom trawling, what happens? The fishing which will be done using this particular practice, there will be overfishing. The population of fishes in this particular region will go down. And as a result of this, what happens is the Tamil Nadu fishers, because they are not able to find sufficient catch in the water regions which belong to India, will basically enter into Sri Lankan waters. They will enter into Sri Lankan waters. And once they enter into Sri Lankan waters, essentially, let's say the security forces of Sri Lanka will either shoot at these fishers or will capture them, and this has become a flashpoint between the security forces between India and Sri Lanka. Done? Everybody is okay? So this is basically the discussion that you need to remember. And that is the precise reason. I can add one more aspect here, and you should also remember this. This is the reason why Government of India is not in favor of any kind of reforms or any kind of policies that are supposed to be implemented to control fishing under WTO. Please remember this. And this was discussed in the Ministerial Conference 13 as well. Under WTO, I'm adding one more point here. Please remember this. Under World Trade Organization, one of the debates that is actually happening is there is illegal fishing. There is right overfishing, and that will basically hurt the ecosystem in the seas. So we need to implement certain reforms to control the fishing activity. We need to protect the ecosystem in the seas. Multiple measures have been announced. Multiple plans have been announced by different countries under WTO. India has not accepted them. India is one party which is generally opposed to these kind of reforms. Why? The government of India simply says in other countries, take for that matter China, take European countries, they will propose these kind of reforms where we will have to impose a restriction on the subsidies that we are giving to fishers. But Indian fishers belong to marginal community. Indian fishers, a lot of these households are very poor. I cannot impose these kind of restrictions. Whereas in these countries, it is commercial fishing. Their revenues are much higher compared to the fishermen in India. Right? So these are the very important aspects associated with all of this discussion that is happening between India and Sri Lanka. Now, based on this, I've given an MCQ. Please solve it as soon as possible. Yes, please solve it. Consider the following statements. Fisheries is the state subject. India has banned bottom trawling fishing. Indian fishers are allowed to fish throughout the year in territorial waters in east and west coast. How many of the statements are true? Please do let me know very quickly. Some of you are saying A. One person has said B. What about others? What about others? Please solve the question and give me the answer very quickly. A. Most of you have gone for A. Ejaspuri. I presume I am pronouncing the name correctly. If not, accept my apologies. Karan, B. Most of you are saying, okay, Dr. Amin, B. Okay, let's solve it. Fisheries is the state subject. Yes, fisheries is the state subject. It is a state subject. India has banned bottom trawling fishing. No, India has not banned bottom trawling. It is still allowed in India. Indian fishers are allowed to fish throughout the year in territorial waters in east and west coast. A lot of you look at the statement and feel this is correct, by the way. Right? A lot of you look at it say, yes, of course, it makes sense. Right? They are fishing within the territorial waters, so they should be allowed. My dear, no. This statement is incorrect. This statement is incorrect. There is certain break that is generally provided by the government. It is a mandate. Generally spanning around 60 days, up to 60 days, a ban is imposed on fishing activities. Why? The reason is basically the government wants the population of the fish to increase. It is during the summer, breeding season is there. So government will impose a restriction on the fishing activity. Done. So third is incorrect. So first one is correct. Right option for the question is option A. Only one of them is correct. Now let me go to the next article. Hydrogen powered train. Now this is an article which has provided lot of technical information. Now listen to me very carefully. These columns which I'm highlighting, the second, third and fourth column has a lot of technical information. Sir, what do you mean by technical information? When the students from chemistry background will read this article, they'll be very happy today. I'll repeat the statement. Students from chemistry background, when they read this article, especially second, third and fourth column, they'll be very, very happy. Why? Concept of anode, cathode, electron, proton, electrolysis, etc. Their bread and butter topics are discussed. But as far as the UPSC is concerned, do not enter into all of these technical issues. Please don't enter into these technical issues. Right? How electrolyzer functions, how many electrons are there, right? What is a cathode, what is anode, etc. Please don't get into all of this. Why? UPSC is not expecting you to be a chemist, by the way. right? So what is the important point here? Important points are these. Deepak Kumar says, we can also understand. My dear, if you can understand, good. I'm not worried. If you can understand, good. But the point I'm trying to say is, these are very technical aspects. These are technical aspects. So I don't think so UPSC will test you in that particular area. That is the point I'm trying to convey here. Okay. Now, what are the important points that you need to make a note from this article? India is India is developing a particular train which shall use green hydrogen. Right? India is in the process of developing a train which will use green hydrogen, and this will become basically a green hydrogen operated train. Multiple countries around the world have tried it. India is also trying it. And once this becomes operational, we are planning to run at two particular places, connecting two places. One is Jind and the other one is Sonipat. Right, around 90 kilometers distance. We want to connect these two places by using this particular train, which shall be operated by using green hydrogen. Now, where this particular train is being developed in India? The train is being developed in the ICF, Integrated Coach Factory, which is present in Chennai. Please remember that. The first trial run of this particular train has been conducted very recently. I believe in the month of June and July, the first test was conducted. Now, once it becomes operational, testing is done. We want to use it to run or operate trains. Now, what is the use of this? Point number one, please listen to me carefully. The government of India is now focused on promotion of production and consumption, production, supply, and consumption of green hydrogen. That is essentially it will be used as a fuel. Right? We are focused on production of it, supply of it, as well as consumption of it. And to promote all of this, Government of India has already implemented an initiative. It has implemented a program or a scheme to promote the production and the consumption of green hydrogen. What are we expecting from the initiative? We are expecting by 2030 we will be able to produce 5 million metric tons of green hydrogen. And those who are concerned, green hydrogen means the production of hydrogen is done using green resources of electricity supply. Everybody is able to understand. For example, there is a particular process. You need to break the water molecule. Again, chemistry students will be very happy. Using electrolyzer, you will break the water molecule. But for that, you require electricity. That electricity that you require will be obtained from green sources. For example, wind energy. For example, renewable other sources of renewable energy. So that is the reason this is called as a green hydrogen. Now by 2030, we want to produce a 5 million metric tons of green hydrogen. But what are the important other objectives as well as the outcomes we are expecting? We want to reduce the import dependence of the fossil fuels. For example, listen to me carefully. In case of India, according to Niti Aayog report, 14%, I repeat, according to Niti Aayog report, 14% of carbon emissions comes from the transportation sector. Is this point clear to all of you? 14% of emissions comes from the transportation sector, one of the largest polluters in India. And out of 14%, which comes from the transportation, most of it is because of the road transportation. Most of it, more than 90% of this is because of the road transportation. But in addition to this, we also have railways. Correct? We also have railways. Railways is used for transportation of goods in India, is used for the transportation of freight in India. That is passengers as well as the freight in India. It is basically adding to the emissions, which is one of the targets of Government of India, because by 2070, Government of India has put forward a plan, has basically a target of becoming net zero. By 2070, the Government of India has a plan to become net zero emitting country. Done. This is very important point. And within this particular area of net zero emission, we know that transportation is one of the largest polluter. That's the reason that railways has been targeted. Railways, we want to make it as a net zero emission by 2030. We want to make railways a net zero emitter by 2030. Different reforms are being implemented. One such reform, one such measure which will help railways becoming net zero emitter is basically shifting away from consuming fossil fuels to, right, let's say green hydrogen. So reduce the import dependence of the fossil fuels, and we expect because of this green hydrogen production, we will be able to save 1 lakh crore rupees. You mean investment, huge amount of investment shall be done. According to the plan proposed by the government, we are expecting more than 8 lakh crore rupees investment. And because investment is going to happen, there will be job generation as well. We are planning to generate 6 lakh jobs, 6 lakh jobs under this. And because we will shift away from the fossil fuel consumption to green, right, hydrogen, emissions will also be lower. The target is reduce the emissions by 50 million metric tons. Right. So these are some of the objectives that the government of India set up in association with the concept of a national green hydrogen mission. Is everybody okay with the discussion here? Please do let me know. Right? Is everybody okay with the discussion? So in that particular context, read this article. The test riding or testing phase is over, and once it will be implemented, it will promote the objectives of government of India to use green hydrogen, reduce the fossil fuel consumption, etc., etc. Bahadur Alam says, what is a net zero? Net zero means overall, the emissions will be zero. Overall means what? Imagine you are emitting 5 grams of carbon dioxide. On the other side, you will plant a tree which will absorb 5 grams of carbon dioxide. Right? So essentially, you have emitted, you have absorbed. Net is zero. Okay, so let me go forward. Next article. Supreme Court of India's panel on students' mental health gets state nodal officers. Important article. Important. Why? Whenever you read the newspapers, a lot of times social issues will become important for you. One social issue that you need to be worried right now is the number of students who are committing suicides in India. Number of students who are committing suicides in India. The numbers are very, very high, very alarming, by the way. Let me give you certain data set. According to National Crimes Records Bureau, according to NCRB, National Crime Records Bureau, in the year 2022, how many people committed suicides in India? 1.7 lakh people. And again, I'm quoting the data. I know some of you will say 2022 is old data. I've taken this data from the data submitted to Supreme Court. So 2022, 1.7 lakh people committed suicides. Out of 1.7 lakh, more than 13,000 were essentially students. More than 13,000 were essentially students. And NCRB further dissects this particular data and says more than 2,000 students committed suicide because of tension associated with examination. I hope you understand. Because of tensions associated with examination, more than 2,000 people have committed, students have committed suicide. Yesterday, day for yesterday, you must have seen in the newspaper as well. So this is one point of data. Second, there was one report that was released by NCRB. Right? There was one more report which was released by NCRB, which states that in the last 10 years, you can quote this particular data as well. In the last 10 years, the overall suicide rates in India have increased by 2%. The growth rate in suicide rates have increased by 2%. Whereas in the context of the student suicides, right, the student suicide rate has increased or has grown by 4% per annum. Look at the alarming rate. Right, the overall suicide rates have grown by 2%, but the student suicide rates have increased by 4%. Right, so double the national average. That is a cause of concern. right? This is very much a cause of concern. And that's the reason I believe I've covered this earlier also. I think in the month of March or April, I took the one session of Hindu News Analysis where I'd mentioned this point. The Supreme Court of India has taken up this particular issue because parents of multiple students who have committed suicides have approached Supreme Court of India. Supreme Court of India took up this particular issue and set up a panel, set up a 12-member panel. It has set up a 12-member panel. And this particular 12-member panel is headed by the former Supreme Court Justice Ravindra Bhatt. Justice Ravindra Bhatt. And recently, this particular panel, right, or let's say the task force, National Task Force, has announced that they will be setting up nodal officers at the state level. They'll be setting up nodal officers at the state level. But let's say this kind of a question is asked to you people in the mains examination. Please look at the question first. All of you, please look at the question first. Student suicides are a tragic reflection of academic stress and societal pressure. Identify the root causes and suggest remedial measures. Identify the root causes and suggest remedial measures. Now listen to me carefully. And those who are talking something else in the chat section, please listen to the lecture. You can talk over WhatsApp later also. Listen to the lecture first. Okay. What are the root causes of these kind of suicides? The two root causes are one, societal pressures. That is, what will my parents say? They have spent a lot of money. What will my neighbors think? Right? What will my relatives talk about me? Etc. etc. Societal expectation. Not only from the viewpoint of the student, from the viewpoint of parents as well. For example, in case of a lot of you must have seen, your parents itself will keep on telling you, please study, become a good, right, let's say, become a person with a good amount of salary. Why? We have to face our relatives, right? Our relatives, right? Children are earning a lot of money, etc., etc. Societal pressure. And in addition to this, there is a race that is happening in case of India in order to get more and more marks so that the entry in a better school, better college can be obtained. Right? So these are the basic pressure points. But what is the solution to this? What is the solution to this? The solution to this is very simple. Supreme Court of India has announced guidelines. Supreme Court of India has announced guidelines. What are the guidelines now? I'll go through all these guidelines one by one. Listen carefully. First one, those institutions who have more than 100 students, those institutions who have more than 100 students must appoint at least one qualified mental health professional. They should appoint at least one professional, right, who is very much qualified. Second one, there should be suicide helpline number, and which is prominently displayed at various places where the students are very often seen. For example, hostel, colleges, etc. Batch segregation on the performance of the students must be discontinued. Right? Batch segregation. What do you mean by batch segregation? You must have seen in certain schools or colleges, essentially what the schools will do is they will create groups amongst the students. Those who are very high performing, they will be segregated into one class. There will be a different class for these students, different set of teachers for these particular students. And there is another set of students who are just, right, let's say normal students. That is, in the sense of normal, right, they are scoring 50%, 60%, 70%, etc. So divide them, have them, right, put them in a different class because the school will simply say we can't expect too much from these students. Right, so argument is segregation based on these kind of performance criteria will basically create fissures, will create groups amongst the students itself, where the students who are segregated apart from the high performing students might face humiliation. Right, they will face humiliation. They will face, right, let's say humiliation, right, in their own eyes, as well as others will start humiliating them. And that might contribute to the students taking this kind of a, right, let's say measure. Staff to be trained at least twice a year on providing psychological aid. A lot of times the teachers who are on day-to-day basis interacting with these students, a lot of times, if they are trained properly, they can understand by looking at the student, by interacting with the student, that the student is facing certain issue. There is certain mental problem that is that the student is going through. So for that we have to train the teachers, provide them with the training so that they can flag these kind of students. And tamper proof ceiling fans, restricted access to roofing, balcony, residential based institutions, etc. So these are some of the recommendations. And by the way, although I'm saying recommendations, listen to me carefully. These are the regulations which have been announced by the Supreme Court. These are the ones which have been announced by Supreme Court of India. And these are supposed to be followed by the states, right? By the states, by the authorities, by the private institutions, coaching institutions, etc. As long as there is no regulation in the form of law implemented by the state government. Done? Right? So these are important. Please mention these kind of regulations if at all a question is asked in the mains examination on these lines. Can we go forward now? Can we go forward? Everybody is okay? Done. Next article. No deal with USA on farm imports at the cost of farmers. Right? At the cost of the farmers. This is a statement which has been given by Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan. Now, what is the debate here? What is the discussion? The discussion is, right now the trade negotiations are happening between India and USA. Trade negotiations are happening between India and USA. Right? And one of the areas that the USA wants India to provide in the form of, let's say, higher access. That is, USA wants India to open up agriculture market. It wants India to open up agriculture market. That is, specifically USA wants to export agriculture products into Indian market. What kind of agriculture products? USA wants to export maize. USA wants to export soybean. Right? Because the USA's farmers, listen to me carefully, the farmers in USA use GM crops, genetically modified crops. The farmers in USA use GM crops, or the GM varieties are used. As a result of that, the productivity of these particular crops in USA is much higher. The productivity of these particular crops is much higher in USA. How much higher? 3 to 4 times. 3 to 4 times compared to India. So the yield rate or the productivity of these particular crops in USA is much higher. Point number one. Point number two, on the other hand, USA and China, there are certain trade frictions that are being experienced on this side as well. Is it okay? Right? There are certain frictions that are happening on this side as well. That is, China and USA are locked into a tariff war. And before this happened, before this issue went to this particular level, USA was exporting a lot of soy to China because China is one of the major consumers of soy. So the argument is USA wants to export these agriculture commodities to India, but India historically has not allowed the trade in terms of agriculture sector. The argument of government of India is essentially, listen to me carefully, the farmers in case of India, a lot of them are poor farmers. Is the point clear? A lot of them are poor farmers. For example, according to agriculture census, around 86 to 87% of the farming in India is small and marginal. Is small and marginal. And when the farming is majorly small and marginal, the productivity will be lesser. The production would be lesser. The incomes generated by the households here would be lesser. Right? So now if you open up the agriculture sector, and although I'm saying agriculture sector, even the dairy is applicable. Same argument for dairy as well. So for agriculture sector, the government of India doesn't want the imports, cheaper imports to enter, thereby affecting the revenue or the incomes of these households. And this is one of the reasons why India did not join RCEP, by the way. All of you heard of RCEP? RCEP essentially stands for Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. It was essentially a proposal of 16 countries, a grouping of 16 countries. But India at the last moment simply said, no, I don't want to be a party of RCEP. Why? India was worried about Chinese imports into India. Right? Because under RCEP, you will have to take out or remove or withdraw the barriers. But in addition to Chinese imports, India was also worried about the plans of New Zealand to export dairy products into India. The plans of New Zealand to export dairy products into India. So, apart from multiple other reasons, one reason or one concern that the government of India had was essentially dairy imports. And that's a reason the government of India basically said, I do not want to be a party, right? I do not want to be a party of RCEP. Done? Okay. So the same argument is being put forward by the government of India, the Minister for Agriculture, and couple of days ago, the Prime Minister also raised the same issue that we do not want to basically give a pass to the agriculture exporters of other countries. Because if they start exporting agriculture commodities, one, we will be worried about returns to the farmers. The Indian farmers would be affected. And moreover, in case of India, please remember, GM crops, commercial cultivation of GM crops is not allowed except BT cotton. Except BT cotton, commercial cultivation of other crops is not at all allowed in India. Right? There have been plans, there have been proposals as well. Right? There have been proposal to have right a BT brinjal, which was put on the back burner by the government of India. There is right BT mustard, GM mustard for that matter. Right? That also has been put on the back burner. Right? Again, there is a argument in favor of promotion of GM crops, argument against promotion of GM crops. But right now, except BT cotton, there is no other GM crop which is commercially cultivated and sold in India. Done? Okay. Right. So these are certain important points associated with what is being discussed in the context of India and USA. Now, there is an MCQ. Please solve the MCQ very quickly. Please solve the MCQ very quickly. Commercial cultivation of GM crops is completely banned in India. India enjoys a trade surplus in services, but overall trade deficit with USA. India is the largest producer and importer of pulses in the global market. How many of the statements are true? How many of the statements are true? Okay, B, A, D. Okay, A, B, D. Okay, let's start. Commercial cultivation of GM crops is completely banned in India. Underline the term completely. Is right there. Is there a complete ban on any kind of GM crops in India? No. Right? No. Right? Some of these, again, when I say some of these, BT cotton is allowed. India enjoys a trade surplus in services, but overall trade deficit with USA. This is also incorrect. Why? India enjoys a trade surplus in services. Yes. Also trade surplus in overall. Not trade deficit overall, trade surplus overall as well. So second statement incorrect. Third one, India is the largest producer and importer of pulses in the global market. In the global market, India is the largest producer of pulses. Yes. More than a quarter quantity, quarter, that is more than 25% of total pulses produced are produced in India. Largest producer. India is the largest importer. Yes. Producer as well as importer. Okay. Third statement is correct. right option for the question will be option A. Only one is correct. Done? Okay. Let me go forward. Next article. Criminal justice reforms are required. Reforms are needed. You can use the data point, or let's say the points which are given in this article to write a mains answer. Right? Mains answer. Process has become punishment in our criminal justice, says ex Chief Justice of India, right? That is N.V. Ramana. What are the important points which are mentioned here? What kind of reforms are implemented? What kind of concerns have been raised? One, in the context of bail, in the context of bail itself. In the recent times also, Supreme Court of India has observed, has given rulings in the context of bail. Now, a lot of times, different provisions under different criminal laws are used by the, right, let's say police, by the police to file a case against individuals. A lot of times, the provisions which are used by the police are non-bailable offenses. Right, these are used to basically put the people, right, behind the bars for multiple months, multiple years as well. So, right, a lot of times the concern has been raised regarding why such kind of stringent provisions are there in the first place. And if these are there, can they be used to penalize, to punish, let's say, certain people who are opposing the policies of the government? Right. So, one is the discussion associated with the bail. Second one is pending cases. Second issue which has been raised is the issue of pending cases. How many cases are pending in case of India? Right, the number of cases which are pending are more than 5 crore. More than 5 crore cases are pending in India. From the lowest to the highest judiciary levels, more than 5 crore cases are pending. What is the reason? The reason is cited to be the vacancy. Remember this. The reason is cited to be vacancy. There are lot of places or lot of positions which are vacant, which are yet to be filled. And when you do not have sufficient number of, let's say, judges to hear cases, when you do not have right sufficient infrastructure, etc., these cases will continue to exist for a very long duration. Right? So the number of vacancies. And if you want to remember, please remember the data set. At the High Court level, 33% of the positions are vacant. 33% vacancy. At lower courts, at the lower court level, the vacancy is 25%. Right. So this is one more issue which has raised concern. And the third concern which has been raised is the cost associated with fighting these cases. The cost associated with fighting these particular cases. You must have seen, you will start from the lower court, right? That is, let's say, district court. Then you will go to high court. From the high court, you will go to, let's say, Supreme Court. Now, what happens is, because the number of cases which are pending are very high, there will be hearings of cases year after year, month after month. The hearings will be conducted. And when the hearings are conducted multiple times like this, essentially what will happen? You will have to keep on paying for the lawyers. You'll have to keep on paying money for advocates to represent you. Right? So the bills which are associated with getting justice like this, the bills will keep on racking upwards. That is also one concern which has been raised in the context of, right, let's say, the criminal justice system in India. Right? So that is the reason the former Chief Justice of India says process itself has become punishment. Okay. Now, next article. Everybody is okay with the discussion so far? Please do let me know. Everybody is okay with the discussion? Great. Let me go forward. Next issue that has been raised in today's, right, let's say, newspaper is the home deliveries versus institutional delivery. Home delivery versus institutional delivery. Malappuram delivers in its fight against home births. What is the issue here? Listen to me very carefully. When you see, right, the concept of delivery, that is giving birth to a child, in old times, right, the hospitals, etc., were not present. What used to happen? at that particular point of time, the practice that was followed was essentially there will be dais, right? That will be old women in the village. They will assist the woman in giving birth in the home itself. But over a period of time, the system has changed. New kind of technology has been invented. The hospitals at the village level as well as right at the district level, etc., we have established, we have set up this kind of infrastructure. But even after this, there is a concern that there are certain regions in India, there are certain pockets in India where even today the practice of giving birth to a child in the home is still practiced. And the numbers are alarming. The numbers are alarming, by the way. And in recent times, multiple instances have taken place where a woman who was trying to give birth to a child in the home itself has died. The child has died. Right? For example, couple of months ago, in the month of April, one of the cases happened in the state of Kerala. And in the state of Kerala, there is one place, Malappuram, right, which is very well known for these kind of instances. That is, a lot of women in this particular village prefer to go for right the birth in the house rather than going to an institution. What is the reason behind this? What is the objective? Why are they still choosing this kind of a method? According to the experts, the reasons behind this are: one, the cost associated. A lot of times they might end up paying a high amount of money in the form of hospital bills. Second one is right the belief system. The belief system, that is, in these particular regions there are certain people who will create that particular sense that it is no point going to an institution, right? You don't have to go to an institution, right? Why? They will basically put the fear of C-section. They will put the fear of higher expenditure burden on the families, etc. So when these kind of, let's say, fears are fed to the people, lot of women come under the fear and they basically prefer to have home deliveries rather than going to an institution. Right? So everybody is able to understand. So there are certain causes, there are certain problems, right? Why even today, despite progressing so much, there is a practice of home deliveries. But the government of India is not in favor of this. The reason government simply says is this is not preferable, because listen to me carefully. There is no law which prohibits or declares home delivery as illegal. I'll repeat the statement. There is no law in India which declares home delivery as illegal, but government doesn't prefer it. Why? Whenever this kind of a practice is followed, the government has seen that the health of the mother or health of the child is at risk. What if there is a complications? What if there's a complication during birthing process? You do not have the experts there. You do not have people who are technically skilled at that particular point of time. That is one concern. And that is the reason why a lot of times when women are birthing in their home, there is a chance of developing a complication. Either the child dies or the mother dies or both of them pass away. So one, complication risk is very, very high. Second, when the birth of the child happens, the government wants you to register the child's birth. The government wants the registration to be done. But if the birth is happening in the households, there is very high likelihood that the birth of the child will not be registered. Third, right, listen to me. Third, when the birthing process happens, or when this, right, let's say the whole process is over, there is a need to provide certain facilities for both the child as well as woman, that is mother. There is a need to provide assistance, right? There is a need to provide, let's say, minerals, right food, right nutrition, etc. All of this might not happen in the home, right? The hospital is the right place for that. So government of India simply says, in addition to this, there is one more bigger risk. What is a bigger risk? Immunization. The bigger risk is immunization. Right? That is, when the child is born, certain, right, let's say immunity boosting, right, let's say drugs are provided to the child. Right? Certain immunity boosting drugs are provided to the woman. Right? That might not happen in the household. So citing all of this, the government of India has implemented multiple reforms, by the way. For example, how many of you heard of Janani Suraksha Yojana? Janani Suraksha Yojana. Or for that matter, there is one more initiative, Pradhana Mantri Matrutva Vandana Yojana. Right? So these kind of initiatives are being implemented by the government, is being promoted by the government essentially to ensure women, when they enter into this particular stage of pregnancy, will be registered with the ASHA co-worker. They will essentially be tracked. That is, their health will be tracked by the ASHA co-worker. And the government, in fact, provides certain transfers. That is, assistance is provided. For example, in case of Matrutva Vandana Yojana, cash transfer is provided by the government in order to ensure that they will have compensation for losing the wage opportunities. They will get access to nutritional material, etc. So these kind of reforms are being implemented by the government. Now, what is the update here? Update is very simple. This particular region that I quoted earlier, which has very high instances of home birth or home deliveries, now the instances of home deliveries have actually come down. Right? The instances of home deliveries have actually come down. That is a good outcome. So the government is simply saying the reforms along with the participation of the society, that is, let's say, religious leaders. When the religious leaders are participating and promoting the idea of an institutional delivery, the probability of people adopting this is much higher. Okay. So this is the discussion. Please solve the MCQ. MCQ number 157. Can the government take action against them? There have been instances in the past where let's say the husband or the mother-in-law, etc., have been booked under different provisions. But please understand, is there a law in India? Is there a provision in India which basically declares this as illegal? No. Consider the following statements. The government has implemented conditional transfer schemes such as a PM Matru Vandana Yojana, Janani Suraksha Yojana to promote institutional deliveries. Statement is correct, by the way. Correct? Statement is correct. The conditional transfer schemes will help efficient outcomes and behavioral changes in the beneficiaries. Yes, this is also true, by the way. And this itself can be used as a mains question. Be careful. Look at the second statement, the conditional transfers. Right? What do you mean by conditional transfer? I'll give you one example. The Pradhana Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana. Under this, cash transfer is provided. Cash subsidy is provided by the government. But not to every pregnant and lactating woman. You are supposed to behave in a certain way. That is, based on your behavioral pattern, the government will provide the assistance. For example, are you registered? Are you registered with the ASHA co-worker? Are you, let's say, having the institutional delivery? Are you getting the child vaccinated? Are you getting the child's birth registered? Based on these performances or based on these behavioral changes, government will give you, cash subsidy. Right? That is the precise reason. The conditional transfer schemes will help in attaining efficient outcomes as well as behavioral changes. Done. So right option for the question will be option C, both of them. Next article, one more update associated with MGNREGA. Right? We have discussed MGNREGA yesterday also, couple of weeks ago as well. What is the update? The update is very simple. Under MGNREGA, if you look at the allocation of the funds, last year the allocation of the funds was how much? 86,000 crore rupees. This year, how much is the funds allocated? 86,000 crore rupees. Right? 86,000 last year as well as this year. Okay, right. So the funds have remained same for the 2 years, but argument is, please listen to me carefully. When you adjust it for inflation, this is raised as a concern. All of you are able to understand. When you adjust it for inflation, this raises a concern. Why? Wages have not remained the same. Wages are different from last year to this year, which means the number of working days, number of job days that can be provided will also be a concern. So argument in this particular article is, a lot of these work days are performed by women. Lot of these work days are performed by women. And under MGNREGA, whether the wages are paid for a man or a woman, the wages are same. I'll repeat the statement. Under MGNREGA, whether the wages are paid for the man or the woman, the wages are same. So the argument is, after many, many decades in India, under MGNREGA, men and women are earning the same wages, which is not generally done if you look at the agriculture labor. So by restricting the amount of funds which are allocated under MGNREGA, the participation of women will be affected. The participation of women would be affected. Done? Okay, so this is the concern which has been raised in this particular article. Now, for sake of information, please have a look at this particular table. I've taken the picture from Indian Express, which gives you data as to how much was the funds allocated, what was the outlay in the last 1 decade. What was the outlay in the last 1 decade? So you will see that over a period of time, there is a fluctuation, increasing, decreasing, right? So for example, 2020, the funds allocated outlay was very, very high. Later, it has reduced. Now, right, it has remained same for the last couple of years. So this is one concern that has been raised in the context of this scheme, which generates a lot of job opportunities for men and women, especially in rural India. Everybody is okay with the discussion here? Please solve the MCQ now. Let me see how many of you will correctly give the answer. Let's solve the MCQ. Consider the following statements. MGNREGS is reported under Part C of gender budget. Majority of the expenditure under gender budget is incurred under Part A. Please do let me know. MGNREGS is reported under Part C of gender budget. Majority of the expenditure under gender budget is incurred under Part A. Now please listen to me very carefully. What is the question? I'm connecting two different concepts. Listen to me very carefully. I'm connecting two different concepts. One is gender budgeting and the second one is MGNREGA. Right? MGNREGA and gender budgeting. There is a concept called as gender budgeting and you should read about it. Under gender budgeting, annually the government of India will allocate the funds, use the funds to implement schemes and evaluate the schemes to promote the empowerment of the other gender. To promote empowerment of the other gender. Right? That is basically the concept of gender budgeting, which has been implemented in India since 2005 and 6. Since 2005 and 6. Done? Now, under gender budgeting, whenever the expenditures are allocated for the schemes, we divide them into three parts. We will divide them into three parts. One is called as Part A. Let me see if I've given. Okay, no. One is called as Part A. Second one is Part B. And the third one is Part C. A, B and C. On what basis do we divide it? Part A schemes are those where 100% of the funds allocated will be used for women-centric schemes. That is the schemes where only women are covered. Part B schemes where the funds are allocated and at least 30% of the funds, I repeat, at least 30% of the funds will be used for women beneficiaries. And Part C is the new thing. From last year, the government of India has implemented this. Part C is where below 30% or up to 30% of the funds are basically covering women beneficiaries. I'm explaining all of this because gender budgeting is there in the news. And I know a lot of you use a chat GPT to get the answers to these kind of questions. Be careful. Why? If you check the chat GPT, it simply says MGNREGA is reported under Part B of the Part A of the gender budgeting. It says it is reported under Part A, but it is not reported under Part A. Be very careful, right? Be very careful with the usage of technology. If you check the budget documents of Government of India for 25 and 26, it is not reported under Part A. It is reported under Part B. Is it okay? Right? Not in Part A, under Part B. It is reported under Part B. So be very careful. So MGNREGA is reported under Part C? No, incorrect. Majority of the expenditure under gender budget is incurred under Part A. This is also incorrect. Why? Majority of the expenditure is incurred under Part B of the gender budget. How much? 72%. Around 72%. Around 72% is incurred under Part B. Around 23% is incurred under Part A. And around remaining 4 to 5% or 3 to 4% is incurred under Part C. So even the second statement is incorrect. Right option for this particular question will be option D, none of the above. None of the above is the right option. Please be very careful. Difficult question, I do agree. Technical, yes. But conceptual, you should have read all of this. You should have read all of this. Okay. So let me go forward. Couple of more articles, just updated information. The Election Commission of India will be holding a meet of all the chief executive officers, CEOs, over the SIR. Right? What is the discussion in the article here? Simple discussion. The Election Commission of India in the state of Bihar conducted SIR, Special Intensive Revision of the Voters. The SIR exercise was conducted in the state of Bihar. Why? It is going for elections, state legislative assembly election. And the concept of revising the voter list is very common in India, but the SIR has become a point of discussion because more than 60 lakh voters' names have been omitted from the list. Done. Now the Election Commission of India simply says, we will conduct SIR throughout India. This is the update. We will conduct the SIR throughout India. Throughout India, we will conduct the SIR now. Right? For that, they are going to call a meeting of all the chief, the CEOs, that is, the chief electoral officers. Right? Chief electoral officers, all of them will have to come. A meeting will be conducted. What kind of process to be followed? What kind of inputs are to be taken? What kind of documents we can take, etc., etc. That discussion will happen. This is basically the update. Keep following the discussion because I'm repeating this. SIR, against this, there is an appeal that is pending in the Supreme Court of India. So this automatically will become very, very important. Now, next article, the Prime Minister of India might skip the trip to the upcoming UN General Assembly, United Nations General Assembly. The 80th anniversary is being held now or is being conducted, and 80th General Assembly, 80th General Assembly session will also be conducted. 80th General Assembly session will also be conducted. Okay, right. So in the 80th General Assembly session, we will simply use the short form now, United Nations General Assembly. 80th UNGA, generally the heads of the states, I repeat, heads of the states participate. They will give speeches, etc. Now, in the 80th General Assembly meet, which is going to happen very soon, the newspaper article simply says the Prime Minister is not going to be present. The Prime Minister most probably will not participate. Rather, it is going to be the External Affairs Minister. So point number 1, 80th anniversary of United Nations. Please go through the background points associated with UN now. Automatically becomes important. And the second one is basically an update. Prime Minister may not participate. In place of Prime Minister, most probably the External Affairs Minister will participate. And there is a very interesting point, by the way. In this article, there is a very interesting point. During the UNGA sessions, the first speech is generally given by Brazil. Anybody knows why? Let me see. In the UN General Assembly, whenever the meeting will happen, the first speech is generally given by Brazil. Anybody knows the reason behind it? Interesting reason. No rule as such. Please understand, when the United Nations was established, 1940s, when the United Nations was established, initially nobody was willing to provide speeches, in the UN General Assembly. It is stated that Brazil used to participate used to provide the speeches, used to go forward and basically give the first speech. For example, in your class also, right, or in your group, if I ask you to come forward and give a speech, most of you will run backward. One or two people will come forward. Apply the same logic to Brazil. So historically, after the UN was established in 1945, it has been seen that Brazil initially was open to giving speeches in the first or as the first person to give speeches in the United Nations General Assembly. And that is the reason, as a convention, I repeat, as a convention, Brazil opens. Brazil essentially gives the first speech. Is it okay? Right. So it is basically a convention, and that term is not given or explanation is not given. But when you read the article, they'll say September 23 to 29, the opening will be done with Brazil as a tradition. The opening speech will be given by Brazil as a tradition. So first speech is given by Brazil, second followed by that, generally it is United States. Why United States? United States is the hosting country. USA is the hosting country. That is the reason first by Brazil followed by United States. Done? Okay. Right. The last two articles just factual information. Right. There is one article on children's education. In the central page, there is one article on children's education. Right. What does the article basically say? And it should not be surprising to you. And don't basically by heart or memorize the data which is given in the article. What is the article speaking? Basically, there is a survey which has been conducted. Right? The survey has been conducted, and according to this particular survey, right, that is a national sample survey, 80th round of national sample survey, essentially it states that when you look at the expenditure done by the households on, right, let's say the children going to the school, expenditure in case of boys is higher than the girls. And this should not be surprising to anyone, right? Looking at the structure that is there in India. And again, do I support it? No. Should you support it? No. But the argument is it should not be surprising. So the expenditure on education on boys is much higher compared to the education expenditure on the girl children. Not just the education. Let's say, for example, the tuitions or high level education. The survey simply says, be it in rural India or be it in urban India, the expenditure incurred on the boys or right on the right school going kids, it is much higher in one gender, much lower in the other gender. And this kind of a difference, gender inequality in terms of expenditure, is not just observed in urban India, but also in rural India. Done? Okay. Last article is associated with the GI tag, right? Just factual information, right? The context of GI tags here in the state of Assam. I repeat, in the state of Assam, that is particular region called as BTR, Bodoland Territorial Region, right? In this particular region, there is a group of youth. There is a group of youth. These particular people have come together and they are identifying what are the areas where we can file the registration for GI tags. What are the areas, right? Be it associated with the food that we are having, or be it associated with, right, let's say the practices that we are following, or the products that we are using, etc., etc. They have basically identified and applied for 50 GI tags. 50 GI tags, and out of these 50 GI tags, more than 20 GI tags have already been approved. And what is the importance of this? Going forward, they want to basically develop GI villages. Remember this. They want to develop GI villages. And what is the use of the GI tag concept? Once you are given the GI tag, you will have the control over the production. Nobody can imitate your product. You are basically having that particular authenticity sign or the symbol, and your product's demand in the market will be protected. That is essentially the concept of GI tag, and this is being discussed in the context of, let's say, villages in the state of Assam. This will help in the revenue generation, income source, income capacity of these poor people in these right hilly regions shall be protected, etc. Done. So these are the points given in the article here. Now, before I take up your questions, right, let's say yesterday I discussed one article associated with the BRICS. Yesterday, right? And while discussing, I gave you the list of the countries which are part of the BRICS. And I said there are 11 countries as a part of the BRICS. A lot of the students have commented basically saying, has Saudi Arabia officially joined the BRICS? Saudi Arabia has not joined the BRICS, etc., etc. Now, this statement basically was taken from the Hindu newspaper as well as from the official BRICS website. It simply says there are 11 countries as a part of BRICS. Right? Agreed. Full time, no. Right? But 11 countries are part of the BRICS. So that is where from, right? That is the source from where I've taken, right, this particular statement. In fact, the Ministry of External Affairs website also says the same thing. Okay. Now, if you have any questions, any doubts, these are the right 11 articles, questions I wanted to discuss with you people in today's session. Now, if you have any questions or doubts regarding what I've discussed, please do let me know. Please repeat Manrega budget question. My dear, what is the doubt? Please be very specific. What is the doubt? Because if you do not know what is gender budgeting, even if I explain it again, you will not understand. What is the doubt? Be specific. How can we get the GI tag? My dear, I think earlier I discussed this. There is an office in India, right? There is an office for this. You need to apply for this, right? Submit an application. They will go through the process and then allocate a GI tag to you. What is the doubt? What is Part C? Please listen to me very carefully. A scheme is implemented. All the beneficiaries under the scheme, I repeat, all the beneficiaries under the scheme are women. Right? This is basically Part A. Means 100% of the funds in the scheme are used for women beneficiaries. Correct? Right, sir, any example? Matrutva Vandana Yojana. You tell me, can a male be classified as a beneficiary under this? Right? Or let's say Indira Gandhi Widow Pension Scheme. Widow Pension Scheme. Can I be classified as a beneficiary under this? No. So, Part A, 100% of the funds are used for women beneficiaries. Part B, at least 30% of the funds. I repeat, at least 30% of the funds, right, are used for women beneficiaries. For example, please look at this article. Please look at the last paragraph. Is the last paragraph visible to all of you? Last paragraph. Women constitute more than 50% of the workforce of Manrega, right? Which also would mean what? More than 50% of the funds under Manrega will be used for women beneficiaries. So can I simply say at least 30% of the funds are used for the women beneficiaries? Part B. And Part C, up to 30%. Up to 30%. Right? Let's say you have allocated 1000 crore rupees. Out of 1000, 100 crore rupees will be used for women beneficiaries. Up to 30%. That is Part C. Right? So this is Part A, Part B and Part C. This is how gender budgeting is done. That's the reason again I'm saying you should have read regarding gender budgeting. If not, please go through gender budgeting first. Okay, done. Anything else? Any other doubts? Okay, done then. So that's it from my side. Please take care. In Manrega, why differentiation required? There is no differentiation. You, out of 86,000 crore, imagine you spend 20,000 crore, not for 20,000, let's say 40,000 crore on women, let's say wage workers. Now, what is the amount you have spent? Around 50%. This is how it is done. Okay, done. Right. So that's it from my side in today's session. Please take care. After the session is over, the PPT will be uploaded in the, right, let's say the drive. Please download and more importantly, use it for revision purposes. That's it from my side. Take care. See you next time. Have a great day.